All right, this is the season preview edition of Celtics Beat. Adam Kaufman, Evan Valenti, and of course, when we're talking Celtics season preview, and we want to look back at the preseason, look ahead at what is to come, I want someone who is just a full-on expert on all things Boston Celtics, and so you can really only turn reliably, comfortably,
Sean Grandy,
to a couple people. This guy, Cedric Maxwell.
Sean Grandy, that's who you can turn to.
We'll try and get him next week. I want to talk to you this week, my friend. How are you?
I am doing just fine, gentlemen. Anticipating the new season, excited about it, but a little apprehensive. Just going back into the crowd, going to Madison Garden. We have not done this, myself and Sean. We have not done this in a year and a half or maybe more of actually being back into a crowd in an arena on the road.
So I was just going to ask that. There was no travel at all for you guys last year?
No, none. The last game that the Celtics did, that we did as broadcasters, we played a game in Indiana, and then we went to Milwaukee, and then that's when we were watching TV that night, and Adam Silver said, the season is now suspended. So we hadn't been a year and a half since we were on the road in an arena.
What's that like? I mean, you mentioned the apprehension, obviously, going into Madison Square Garden, going into these arenas. I guess you won't really know until you physically do it. But even just the from the standpoint of like packing for a road trip all over again and getting into the routine of it after not doing it for so long.
Yeah, we had the opportunity to do the exhibition season, and they decided at the last moment we were going to be in Orlando and Miami for the last two exhibition games. And I think we couldn't get a engineer. Engineers in hard supply right now in these cities, between a year and a half of doing it. So decided to do both those exhibition games at the Garden, actually in the Celtic locker room. So
interesting.
It's going to be, for actually to get on a plane. I haven't been there with the Celtics. Get on the plane, go to a hotel, leave the hotel, go to the arena, come back home. This is going to be, we're essentially going to be neophytes coming back in.
And you guys, it's back to traveling with the team and everything, or is it independent?
Back traveling with the team. I think we have a couple of games that we'll probably fly independently. But for the most part, I think most of our games right now we're going to be traveling with the team, on the team bus with the players. So, kind of back to where we were, I guess.
What's it been like? I know for so many of us, and obviously we don't even cover the team in a traditional sense. We do the podcast and we, tweet like crazy and we watch games and all that. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, we're, even though we work in the media, we're fans. We support the team. It's not the same as being on the beat, working for a newspaper, radio station, TV, whatever, and being out there every single day at practices, at games, all of that. Our responsibilities are different. So for you, is it kind of strange, even like going back to media day? I don't know if you were at media day, but the being like physically around the players again, when obviously for the last year plus it was all Zooms and no in-person access. Maybe it was a little different for you and you could get closer to the players for home games at the Garden since you weren't on the road. But this new reality, like you said, traveling with the players, being on the buses with the players, this is going to be like it always was. What's that transition like from the last year plus to getting back to that and being able to really interact?
Well, last year, during the season, essentially we did all the home games, the home games, but we were up in the stands. We were literally 20, 30 rows up in the stands away from the players. So physically, we never even got a chance even to look these guys in the eyes or touch them at all. It was in this last game, in the first exhibition game, was the first time I got a chance to speak to Tatum and to speak to Brown and to speak to Horford and some of the guys, just to kind of dap them up. And it was, it felt good to actually have a physical contact that I could actually look them in the eyes. And they were like happy to see me and I was happy to see them. So that I'm almost like a kid in the candy store right now, thinking about just the being around the players, getting the sense of who they are, and you learn so much really with their body language. When you see them, how they're feeling or what they might think about it. Sometimes it is you can see it on their face. Like you could instantly see Al Horford when I saw him. It was like you could see that he was just so happy to be back in the green, to be back here. And it's almost like, and if you look at Al, it's almost like he didn't leave. I mean, he had a little vacay in Philly, and then when he went to got traded to OKC, they told him like, no, we're not interested in trying to win. Go home, stay in shape, but we're going to probably move on from you. So he had pretty much a whole year off without being injured. So I think he's happy to be back.
I'm guessing too, you can ask the guys questions that, all those years you normally would have, just kind of conversational and talking to them a little bit and ask them questions in ways that you wouldn't, obviously, when you and Sean are doing pre or post game interviews or anything like that. I mean, you can ask them, a little bit more intimately about the transition to Ime and Brad and his new role. And boy, like, Jayson, are you tired? Is Deuce keeping you up all night? Like, just these sort of just more human questions than probably you've been able to have for the last year.
Just how are you doing? I mean, like, yo, dude, what's up? How you feeling? And that's the same thing they would tell me. So that interaction is always the key as a broadcaster, especially on my side of it, being an analyst. They know I've played the game. I know they're playing the game. I know most of the time what they've gone through. But that physical touch and to look a man in the eye, there's a different connection than I even have with you, just looking you in the eye on this telecast that you have. When you look in these little boxes, and as you and I were laughing before, I said, okay, where do I look? I mean, on my iPad, I know there's a little dot that I have to look at. And if I look at you on the camera, I'm looking away. So I have to train myself even more just to do that. Instead of when you meet somebody face to face, that a good handshake, a fist pump, or whatever it is, eye to eye, you're getting pretty much an honest reaction from another guy.
Well, look, Evan and I, we do this show every week. I haven't seen him in person in like 5 years. I don't even know.
It's been well, I mean, that's just because we're on two different ends of the state, but it's been a little while. But look, this at least does a little bit for me. I get to talk to Adam before we get into the show about his life and what's going on with the kids and everything like that. So at least we have this. It's a little bit better than a text, which is great. But we had the first meeting out in Boston. It was March of like 4 or 5 years ago. We met you and Xanis for the first time. Yeah. What was it? Buffs? What is the name of that place?
Buffs, Newton there. Yeah. Wings. Good.
They were very good.
Great.
They were excellent.
They'd like to sponsor the podcast, as a matter of fact.
Free ad there for them. Yeah.
It's true. So let's get into it, Max. And there are so many things I want to talk to you about here over the course of this show, from Celtics news, Celtics announcements that have come out. Obviously, the fact that since we last spoke, and not even just that, I mean, in the last, I think inside the last week at this point, you are officially, this is not just, we last time you were on the show, we talked about the fact that this was coming, but this has now happened. You, my friend, there it is. You are a published author. How's that feeling? For anyone that isn't watching, by the way, it is, if these walls could talk, Boston Celtics stories from the Boston Celtics sideline, locker room, and press box by none other than Cedric Maxwell. You can get it on Amazon, and I'm sure a whole bunch of bookstores as well.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm really amazed. It is, this is the first, I don't know, think about my career. It's been with the Celtics, broadcasting and being with them for almost 30 years. So my insight to history with the organization, from Larry Bird to JoJo White to Red Auerbach to now with Tatum and Brown. I do. I can fill a room up and just stuff that happened in my life. So I was approached about 1.5 years ago. And my guy, Mike, he came through and said, look, I would like to, do this book. And he and I sat down and we did it, on the phone for probably, I don't know, hours, days, hours, it kept, over and over again of me giving him information and just trying to piece together and having almost to go back in my mental Rolodex and grab things that I had essentially almost forgotten about. So that was it was an interesting opportunity for me to kind of spew a bunch of stuff that I knew about this team, my connection with Larry Bird. I think one thing I did in this book, and it was almost therapeutic in the fact that I really hadn't thought about it, but when I finally did, it was like apologizing to my teammates for maybe 1985, the year that I got injured. Did not know how to react. And it's almost like a cocky arrogance when you're hurt, but you want to participate, but you can't. And I think I did a lot of things the wrong way and rubbed people. Instead of me limping around and, woe is me, I'm the same person. I was laughing, I was happy. And I think it came across almost like I didn't care. I just gotten a big paycheck. I didn't care about coming back, when essentially I've never known anything else other than how to compete at a high level. That's from the time I was in high school to college into the pros. So for my teammates and some of them to almost think that I had quit on them, as I've heard one of those things Larry Bird had said before, quit on them. That was the furthest thing from the truth. I think I just did not know how to handle being injured because I'd never been injured before. Throughout my college career, throughout my pro career, a twisted ankle is different than having a partial tear in the meniscus or something going on with your knee that makes you not being able to move. So I went out in this book, and I think in one chapter, yeah, I did. I actually apologized to my teammates because of just not knowing how to act. And I guess if I'd walked around moping around saying, "Oh my God, I'm hurt," do you guys feel the pain? But no, I was laughing, being the same person I've always been.
You mentioned Mike. That's Mike Eisenberg, your co-author, who has done a couple of these books in the past as well. Not for Boston teams, for the Detroit Lions, Detroit Tigers as well. So I imagine he's, pretty locked into Detroit sports. So this was a little bit of a
Mike actually, Mike actually was. He went to Emerson, and he played there. Okay. And he wore the number he wore was for his favorite player, 31. So he was a huge fan. I'd met him before years ago in Detroit. He came up to me and told me the story about who he was. I always meet people and they tell me, "Hey, well, I played like you, or I knew you, or something." And I really didn't take that much. And then one day he came back to me, and I'm not sure I got in contact with me, but he said, told me again who he was and said, "Man, have you ever thought about writing a book about your life and your experiences, with Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and all these guys?" I said, I said, that would probably be something that people would really like to read about. And it was just funny. This summer, I had my mom was having a pacemaker put in, a battery for a pacemaker. And I taken her to the hospital in Greenville, North Carolina. I'm from Kinston, maybe 20 miles away, drove her there. And when I dropped her off, there was a young lady who put her in a wheelchair, brought her in. And my mom is real braggart, very proud about who I am. So when I came back to pick my mom up, the young lady said, "You're famous. Oh my God, you're Cedric Maxwell." And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then the funny thing she told me, said, "My brother has already pre-ordered your book, which is coming out." And I was like, wow. And that really kind of just slapped me when I had somebody from Greenville, North Carolina, pre-ordering a book about if these walls could talk.
Well, and you mentioned this being, therapeutic for you, obviously, when you were going through the process. Was it, I guess I wonder to what degree, like, did it help you kind of mend any relationships over the years? Like you said, apologizing to your teammates. but has it led to any phone calls? It's just been such an introspective process for you that it's like, man, I should give this guy a call. Or, conversely, you think that so-and-so is going to read it and then reach out to you to say, hey, like, let's talk about that. Let's bury this hatchet, or let's catch up on this, or let's just reconnect because it's been so long.
Well, I did have one conversation with Larry, and that was I think the one teammate that I have a disconnect from. Everybody else I've connected, and we're like old war buddies.
Yeah.
Larry's always been. Even when I played, Larry and I were not the best of friends. We were co-workers. We worked together, and we did it well. But our interests were completely different. I wasn't a beer drinker. Larry didn't like social issues, and so our worlds did not mingle in that way. And I remember at one point, I think I had made a statement, and I said that Kevin Garnett was the best all-around player maybe ever to put the green.
Yeah, you said it on this show.
And Greg Dickerson went to Larry when Larry was coaching at Indiana and said, well, Max said that you were the best, that Kevin Garnett was the best all-around player. And Larry gave some answer like, well, Max is going to quit on them like he quit on us. And it was just like jarring the way it was like, it wasn't insulting if I say that Kevin was the best all around. I don't think that anybody, you could argue the point, but it's on a very, very short list. So it wasn't anything insulting. And I met some people who said to me, I mean, when I used to do WEEI, I used to do talk radio, there would be sometimes Larry defenders who would come at me and say, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And Larry, I said, dude, you don't have to protect Larry Bird. What I said doesn't take away from the greatness of Larry Bird. He's one of the greatest players ever to play the game. But when it comes to the green, Kevin Garnett was a dynamic defender, and he was a dynamic offensive player. And he was not as good as Larry Bird offensively, and not as good as Bill Russell defensively. But someplace in the middle right there, that dude's a bad man. He has stats that are only stats that Kevin Garnett has. It's something like, 15,000 this or 10,000 this and all the play. And that's why he's going into the Hall of Fame. So it wasn't anything to insult Larry. And I'm sorry that he even felt like that, because it doesn't take away from the greatness of who he was as a player or my opinion about his greatness. I mean, my era, I loved it. People will ask me right now, they'll say, well, how was it playing with Larry Bird? And I would immediately always say, well, you mean, how was it for Larry Bird to play with me? Is that what you're saying? So I have fun with it. But like you said, the connection and doing the book and, some of the sports in the book, one of them is written by Robert Parrish himself. He has a big part in talking about it. Danny Ainge is talking about it. Kevin McHale. There are stories about all these guys who I played with. So it was it was therapeutic in me getting it out, but not necessarily as much about connecting, except maybe with Larry.
Well, the other thing too is that, and I think, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, I guess, tell me if you disagree, but I feel like, where maybe Larry took that the wrong way, or where others who have, heard this from you take it the wrong way when it's just blasted out as, a headline on Twitter and it's, oh my, this hot take and all of that stuff. I don't think you're saying that Kevin Garnett was a better all-around Celtic than Larry Bird. I don't think you could even argue like Kevin Garnett, his Celtics accomplishments compared to Larry Bird's accomplishments, they're not in the same spectrum. But you could make the claim, which is what I think you're doing, that Kevin Garnett was the better all-around player as compared to Larry Bird in their NBA careers on the whole. Obviously, what one did in Boston singularly to what the other did in Boston singularly, you can't compare those.
No, you can't compare what Larry did for the franchise. That's not it. But just from a standpoint of a player, if you look at their numbers and you look at what they've done, Kevin Garnett is in.
But for the totality of their careers, not just Garnett's 6 years in Boston.
Yeah, he's in. If you look at Kevin Garnett, he's in essentially almost a league by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can go out and say even maybe a more outrageous statement in the fact that if you think about it, was Kyrie Irving, was he the most talented player ever to play on this team, ever to put green on?
Best ball handler.
Yeah, maybe.
But
Yeah, wouldn't quite go that far, but I think I get what you were getting at.
Is there a guard that you look at the Celtics was a better all around offensive guard than Kyrie Irving?
It's tough.
Okay, I'll take that as a yes. I think that's a yes. You didn't say anything. Like, okay.
I was thinking.
You got to think about it. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
How long do you have to think? I mean, you give me a player that you might even think that could compare to compare to Kyrie Irving that wore the only one I could think about that explosive might have been Isaiah.
Right.
Isaiah Thomas play. But other than that, everybody else has never really been that explosive from the guard position. You could think about you think about who's a great guard you think, because normally you don't think of great guards when you think of Celtics. You don't really, you might think about
it's like Sam Jones and Kuzi, and that's.
And Sam Jones really wasn't a guard. He was more like a.
He played everywhere, so it's hard to
I mean, you think about is he more explosive than John Havlicek? Yeah. Was he more explosive than Bob? I mean, it's hard to measure eras, but is Kyrie Irving a better ball handler than Bob Cousy was?
Not even a question.
So when I say from a talent and a skill standpoint, not too many people I know, and it'll be a very small list when I think about it, who has been as talented as Kyrie Irving has been. And the only one I can think about, maybe Bill Russell. Bill Russell ran track. He was in the Olympics. He long jump. He could run the 100. Maybe he's the only one physically I think about when I say, wow, that guy physically could compete with maybe Kyrie Irving, or Kyrie Irving could compete with him.
Yeah, it's tough. I think we transcend eras. It's really difficult. One of my favorite guys, JoJo White, is one of he has the body of a guy today, and he was playing 40 years ago, 50 years ago. So it's like,
yeah,
there are certain guys that transcend eras. Like Russell's one of those guys, and you could plop him down today, and he'd be just fine. He would figure it out. But not everybody's like that. You can't take Sam Cousy or Bob Cousy and put him in today's NBA and assume that he would, it would take him a while to adapt to the speed and the ball handling today. I mean, if you watch the videos, and I'm not trying to talk down on Cousy here, but if you just watch the videos and watch him dribble a basketball and then watch Kyrie dribble a basketball, it's a lot of difference here.
No,
so,
I mean, the game that ball's stolen from him routinely. The way he's dribbling out around him, it's
how many skills does Marcus Smart have if he's guarding Bob Cousy?
The game is completely different. I do understand that, and I'm not trying to slap at anybody when it comes to. I looked at them paws around you. I was like, "What the hell is that behind?"
My puppy, she's sleeping currently.
I was like, "Whoa, there's Bigfoot. He lives." But I do believe.
There you go.
I do believe when you think about who he is and what Kyrie Irving has done, there are very, very few people that I could think about who have been as explosive.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember JoJo White. JoJo White could have played baseball. He got drafted to play baseball. JoJo White could play football. JoJo White was an incredible athlete. But I think about Kyrie Irving with his skill set, his foot speed, his ability to shoot the basketball. There's not a lot of Celtic guards that have ever been like that. As a matter of fact, I can't think of any, maybe other than Isaiah Thomas when he had those brilliant years he had.
Yeah, the King in the Fourth and all of that.
Yeah, I agree.
Max's book again called "If These Walls Could Talk: Boston Celtics Stories from the Boston Celtics Sideline."
Hang on a minute. Before we move on off the book, I have one question for Max about the book.
Yeah. If your question is, can I narrate the audio book? No. Get in line.
Yeah.
Get in line out.
No way.
And I'm waiting behind Brandy, so it's a long line.
Yeah. But so it's a sort of a two-parter. The first question is, how much stuff didn't get into the book? Like that was was there a heavy edit? Is it something that wasn't heavily edited? Like, no?
No. This is It is very much everything that I've thought of. We put it in the book, and I think the only thing that might have been edited was there was a thing where they talked to one of my ex-teammates when I went to the Clippers, Marcus Johnson, and we were playing pool. Marcus Johnson, myself, Franklin Edwards, who was with the team in LA, and we were shooting pool, and Marcus came in. He would start shooting, knocking down balls, and then I yelled out, "Marcus, you can't play!" And I put the N word. You can't play that kind of pool. And Marcus just bust out laughing, started missing all these shots. Well, actually, I used the N word in the book, and the author and the editor came back and said, "Oh, wait a minute, can you dial that down? Can you say African American?" I was like, "Whoa, no, dude, that's not how you used it." Where I can see, hey, you African American, you can't play, pool. No. So there isn't too much edit down for this book. Most of it is pretty much what I've said and what I believed and stories that I've told.
So my second follow-up was gonna be, what did you wish that didn't make the book that you wish was in the book? Is there a story that you missed that you wish that you on back on and say, oh man, I wish, this is done, it's great, but I wish I had this in there at the end or this in there somewhere?
You know what? Here's the thing. I haven't read the book yet. I've just read. No. I
got the book right in front of you. You're holding it.
No, dude. I read snippets. I'm not one of these people. I read snippets of like, oh wow, I forgot I said that. There were hours and hours. I mean, we're looking at 100 and.
That's more. 200 something pages.
Yeah, there's almost 300 pages of stuff in here, and it took me forever to read the book Jaws when I was in college. So I don't know. I mean, it's a great read. I'm
waiting for Max to sit there and go, I'm not this interesting. I can't read this whole thing.
Right.
You know what? People are going to find the book and they're going to be fascinated with all the things that are in there. I mean, from stories about Red Auerbach to one of the stories that has been a legend in Boston talk radio was the story I told about my circumcision. That story that EEI had, they ran that. They said it was the funniest story ever. And so that story is in there. It's a bunch of different things that are in there. So I'm saying I've given it to several people and they said, oh my God, amazing read. So I read snippets. Somebody's like, oh, let me read page. I just sometimes to be use myself, I go to page 200 and go, wow, I forgot about that. Wow. So we talked about a lot of different things for hours and hours and days that me and Mike talked about this and just try to come up with different things.
I wasn't prepared for circumcision and snippets to be used in the same proximity of sentences.
No. I mean, what a great line that was. Only you will put that together. Snippets and circumcision. Okay.
Mind of a 12-year-old. I need to get a copy of this book, Max, so I can read it and then we can give it a full review on the show. But I'm looking forward to it. That'll be great. Yeah. All right, let's get into some Celtics talks here because there's just so much I want to get to coming off the preseason, Max, and I want your preseason takeaways on the floor. But I think what is most interesting to fans, or maybe I'm just projecting, it's definitely most interesting to me. And we were talking about it a little bit even before we came on the air with this show, is the off-court factors. And chief among them, of course, is how exactly new head coach, first-time head coach, Ime Udoka, is going to run this ship. And I think that what we're learning, I mean, we heard this, when he was hired, we heard it, we got a sense of it at the introductory press conference, but what we are full on learning 4 games, into a preseason and regular season coming, this guy is not going to take any crap. Ime Udoka is not going to take any crap. And what I wonder is, first, of course, I mean, he goes out of his way, and I love this. Oh, do I love this, Max? He talks constantly about enough bitching at the officials, enough complaining, enough whining, get back on defense, do your job, focus, just stop, live in the moment and play on. He effectively benched Grant Williams for that the other day. He kind of, blamed it on he was in foul trouble, but that wasn't the reason. Not really. That, you read between the lines. He was benched for complaining. He was benched for whining, and, a a bucket being scored in his face because he was too busy barking at the man in stripes to get back on his defensive assignment. Or, of course, Marcus Smart, who may very well end up being a captain for this team. Those haven't been named yet, but missing a team flight to Orlando, and he gets suspended, albeit for a preseason game. But it's just another sign of Ime saying, you know what? There's a new sheriff in town. And I want your thoughts on all of this.
I think that's exactly right. I think you put it, all right now on the plate. And the fact he's saying, this is my team and this is how we're going to operate. And maybe in sending a message, benching Grant for complaining when we know he's not talking to Grant. We know he's talking to Tatum, who is for the longest time that we've always said that. As great as he is, the one thing that takes away is that he turns to the officials all the time after almost every call. So I think that he was talking I think he was talking to the entire team, but I think he was talking to the hierarchy. Have you ever seen, we had that with Bill Fitch when I was playing with the Celtics. He would yell at me about something that I never even did. But it wasn't yelling at me. He was yelling at Larry. It was the message was kind of going around the other way. And I think that's the same thing that happened. With Marcus Smart, that was pretty special in the fact you suspend a guy for missing a flight when, in fact, he wasn't even going to play in that game in Orlando anyway. But I like it. I like the fact that he is saying, guys, this is my team. This is kind of what Greg Popovich, this is what I've learned from him over the years. This is how he's gone about it. Greg Popovich knew one thing, and this was the best relationship. He could yell at Tim Duncan. When you can yell at your best player, everybody else falls in line. Mm-hmm. And gets the message. And that's what he said. I remember Ime said early on at the press conference, his first one, he said, Tatum and Brown, I've talked to them, and they want to be coached hard. And I will coach them hard. So yeah, that message is being sent, and I think it's going to be heard loud and clear when you suspend a guy or you bench a guy. For, as you said, bitching about the call or missing assignment. Because when you do that without any permission, it's almost like the inmates are running the asylum. And I think that he's not going to stand for that. He's a warden, and everybody's going to follow footstep in line.
Can there be a problem? And I'm not saying this is the case now. The season hasn't even officially started. But if this becomes a regular thing, and by that I'm talking about Ime, kind of airing guys out in the media like that, it's such an antithesis from obviously what, the way Brad operates. Like, you never over the last 8 years heard anything even remotely from Brad Stevens resembling some of the stuff we've already heard from in a preseason Ime Udoka. Is it one of those things where you worry about, again, not now, just going forward, if it's a routine thing, do you worry about a coach, especially a new coach, airing his guys out in the media? Do you worry about a guy losing the locker room? Do you worry about the way some of these guys, even though they want to be coach hard, there's a difference between coach me hard privately and air me out to everybody. And as a former player, obviously, I mean, you're a perfect person to ask that question to. Is like, is there a fine line that Ime has to walk there before it goes south?
There is a fine line. I mean, I remember Bill Fitch being our coach and winning the championship, but continue to, in ways, berate players. I remember, and Danny Ainge, this is one of Danny's favorite stories about me. We were sitting in the, Bill Fitch wanted to have a team meeting. And the first person he comes to is me. And he says, well, Max, used to really be a cheerleader for your teammates, and you were rah-rah, this, that, and the other. And I looked up at Bill and I said, Bill, I could do that if you didn't say I was the dumbest motherfucker you ever met in your life. And the whole room just bust out laughing. And but it was a true statement because he would always say that about me, and you know, right in my face. And it didn't bother me in that way, but eventually those things kind of edge at you. I think Ime is smart enough to understand, and like I say, he's been under Greg Popovich, to know when to needle and to know when to maybe pull back. So I don't really anticipate him doing it over and over again. You know, it's like the boy who cried wolf. You know, after a while you cry wolf so many times, ain't nobody coming. But if you do it one time, do it two times, you're sending a message, and I think everybody gets it loud and clear.
But he's not airing guys out like publicly here, in my opinion. Like the Marcus Smart thing is we're handling it internally, and we're done with it.
Kind of aired out Grant though.
Not, but I mean, but his point, his biggest point, one of the biggest talking points he's had all season has been we're not going to do this. We're not going to play into the refs. I won't have it. And like that was a clear example where, and that's exactly what he's talking about. You lose focus, you know, and all of a sudden they're going back the other way and scoring 2 points. You know, you don't need, you can't lack focus in basketball. I mean, we've seen what that's happened so many times with Boston, and last year was a great example of them losing focus all the time. So, I mean, I get there's a fine line between airing guys out. I just don't think Ime is really airing guys out right now. I think it's just him trying to set a culture from day one that you know, this isn't going to fly around here. But I think he's handled it really well. I don't think he's gone like over the top at all.
Well, I'll ask you guys, who is he talking to? Who is he talking about really? Who is the message being sent to about complaining and bitching to the
Tatum?
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. It's top down for sure.
Like, oh, he's talking about we've all seen Jayson Tatum throw his hands up and you know get that, you know, over and over, and then eventually run back. So we've seen that. So the message is one which is being sent to the team, but it's also being sent to your best player. When your best player is kind of ratted out, I think that you don't have to do it as much publicly, and then everybody else kind of falls in line, and you know that's not anything that's going to happen. Now, I don't expect that not to happen from time to time because officials are going to miss calls. But that was his statement, and like I said, that Grant thing was telling. The fact that you're pulling Grant out. But I'm pulling you out, Grant, but I'm actually talking to Tatum. This is who I'm actually talking to.
So what about on the floor? Your, you know, just main takeaways, what you've seen through 4 games, style of play under Ime versus what it was under Brad. I know it hasn't been a perfect situation with, you know, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, both missing time already to quarantine, and we'll see what their status will be for the opener come Wednesday in New York. We're still waiting to hear that officially, and you've had some rest days built in, obviously Marcus's suspension, you know, little tweaks, little injuries. So it's not been a perfect scenario in terms of, you know, clear cut what the rotations are going to be and all of that, but just in terms of systematically, and again, style of play and guys who have taken a leap forward from last year, that type of thing. What have your takeaways been?
That would be it. People that have taken the leap forward, like Pritchard. You know, I just think he's going to be a guard that's going to be around for a long time because he knows how to play. We've seen a lot more of Neesmith shooting the basketball with confidence and not being so herky-jerky with his shots. I think the main guys that he's looking to are guys who are good defenders. I think that's what he talks about most. Bringing the Al Horford back, not missing assignments. We saw this team over and over again over the last couple of years. If they tried to out-defend you, they won their share of games. When they tried to outshoot you, those were the games that they lost. So I think that's the presence that you see almost immediately. What I think also is that you look at their bench now, and this is a deep bench. When you talk about Richardson, and when you talk about guys who are coming off the bench able to score, you don't know where Marcus is going to play. Oh, but not having, and I love Taco as a person, but as a player in this league, I didn't see where he was going to help you. You saw that with Carson Edwards, who had a brilliant game, exhibition game in Cleveland 2 years ago. That I said, oh my God, this guy is going to be unbelievable coming off the bench. Never translated in a game. So you look at your bench and you did not see the scoring or the firepower or the experience that you're able to go to now. Schroeder coming in, him being a point guard who's going to be nasty defensively. Offensively, I like what he brings to the table. Richardson. So there's some guys over there that can play at a very high level, and you don't have the fall off like you did in the last couple of years with the Celtics when you went to their bench.
Yeah, and the younger guys are more reliable now, right? You're looking at, Romeo Langford had a great night the other night, very confident. His shot looks fantastic. The buzzer beater he hit in game 1, and then complete. What do you have, like 18 the other night? He was like 4 or 7 from 3-point range. That's what you want to see. Aaron Nesmith against Orlando, showing off some moves that Jaylen obviously taught him with the stop, turn around fadeaway jumper on the right side. I mean, that's really nice. Guys making steps, making improvements. And, you were talking earlier this show about how, you're seeing guys face to face. You're getting to read their body language, look them in the eye, dap them up, all that fun stuff. What is how are and I can't find a better word for this because it's just really popular right now, this word. So I can't really find a different way to say it. But like, how are the vibes right now with this team? Or how they're much different than last year? Because you see, I'm sure you've read some of the quotes in the media, how they're getting after it in practice. Guys are getting into fights. They're beating the crap out of each other. That brings competition, which is great. Too much physicality and maybe too much fighting becomes a problem. But it seems like these guys are really getting after it, taking the season very seriously after what was admittedly a down year. Do you see a difference in tone coming out of the locker room this year?
Well, first of all, my friend, let me tell you the word vibe. That goes back to the 70s. So don't worry about it. Not a word that they just made up overnight. Like, I was like, where is he going with this? This is going to be like, keep it real.
No, the vibes are, it's a very common word in today's vernacular.
That's the good vibes.
Well, vibe has been going on for a while, but I tell you what I do. I like the fact that you have guys who are going to compete at a high level. And I always thought that was great for practice. Because when I was like Iverson, I hated practice. But when you compete like that, you only push the other guy to get better. And you cannot duplicate game situations in practice. But the competitive nature of the guys that the Celtics have signed, especially off the bench, I think are going to push people. The guy and just as the guy I look to is Rob Williams. Can Rob Williams stay healthy? I mean, he was a scratch the other day. I'm like, what happened this time? I mean, so I'm a big Rob Williams fan when he's playing, but Doc Rivers, ex-coach of the Celtics, said it best. He said, your best ability is availability. And that we have not seen enough of consistently from Rob Williams. You just say he just had a payday. I talked to him, got a chance to talk to him for a minute. And I said, young man, I know you had a payday. I said, the word of the day should be this for you. No, I ain't got it. And that's what you got to tell to your family. I ain't got it.
Yeah.
So I do try to, give a little bit of wisdom. I remember seeing Tommy sitting on the sideline, with the guys, and, God bless his soul. But he would sit there and, bring guys in, and he would talk to them and just let them air out their great grievances. I had that kind of relationship with Paul Pierce and guys like that during the time, or, Kevin Garnett. So, I'm going to probably try to put a little bit more of a stamp on getting to know some of the guys maybe a little bit better. Like I said, my thing with Tatum was really good, was my eye opener. I think I told you guys, and this actually is in the book, where Jayson Tatum, I think it was maybe the middle of his first year, whatever it was, but he is going out and he's going to practice, and he walks up in court and he starts yelling, cornbread. He looked right at me, cornbread. I was like, dude, what's wrong with you? He said, man, I saw that 30 for 30. Damn, you were bad. You was a bad motherfucker out there. So those kind of things to me, resonate. And like I said, guys don't even know you can really play in this league until they see a little tape on you going, damn, dude, You won't badge you. I mean,
Finals MVP's got to mean something to somebody.
Yeah, right.
Well, that was a great story. Another one I think, and hopefully this, I'll look back in the book and see if it made it. But it was with Kendrick Perkins. Perkins was with OKC at the time, and I went and talked to him after the game. And Westbrook and Durant, they were in the locker room with him. And I walked in and I said, Perk, you owe me some damn money. And Perk looked at me with his country draw and said, I don't give a damn if you were finals MVP. And Durant and Westbrook looked at me like, who is this dude? Who is he? So, I mean, those things are just really funny when you think about who you are and what you've done over your career.
So another thing on a couple of things that I want to get to still before we run out of time, and one will take a little bit longer than the other. So I'll knock this one out. This team, Ime Udoka, it's not the biggest deal in the world. It's just something that I really have fun with, and maybe Evan as well, but a lot of people don't care. Brad Stevens, of course, never named a captain, or at least never wanted to name a captain. Rondo was a captain. It was kind of thrust upon him, but he never wanted to name a captain. And after Rondo, there hasn't been one. Ime Udoka plans to, at last time he said it anyway, he plans to likely have two captains for this team. And so, Twitter being Twitter likes to debate a little bit. What's that going to be? And of course, the Smart situation, is that going to hurt him being the longest tenured Celtic and really the de facto captain of this team for years? Could that, lead to a problem for him missing this flight, getting suspended, yada, yada, yada? If you had to guess, so not, well, maybe this is the same question. Maybe it's not. It's up to you. Who you believe will be the two captains for this team and who you think should be the two captains for this team. Is that the same answer?
Both one and the same. I'd say Marcus Smart, and I would say Tatum. And Tatum, your best player, and Marcus Smart, your emotional and physical leader. I've always said this about Marcus Smart. It was, you've been to people's homes before where they have a sign that says, beware of dog. Marcus Smart is that dog on your team. He's that one dog that you're going, well, you better not go over there and do that. And so that's why I think that Marcus, from that standpoint of being that leader and the emotionally charged guy, and Tatum, your best player, has to have an input on decision making with this team. He's going to be here a long time. He's your franchise player. And I happen to think Jaylen Brown is just as talented as he is, but I think that would burn the building down if you did not say that Tatum was the team captain.
Yeah, the only other way around it's going to be Brown or like Horford for seniority. Like Tatum's going to be one of them, and Smart's the other. It makes the most sense. I think everybody is, at this point arrived at this. I mean, there's clearly three guys that are worthy of it. I think two are more than the others. And then there's Al because he's the elder statesman. And his voice seems to resonate a little bit in that locker room with some of the guys too. Because you can tell, when he comes back, certain guys were, pretty jacked about being Brown especially.
I hope that Al puts his imprint on it. He has been reluctant over the years to say as much. And remember when he finally left and Kyrie finally left, he was like, damn it, Kyrie didn't do this. And it was about Kyrie. And it's like somebody has to step up to that guy on your team. And I don't know if you have to, have a fight, whatever it is, but you have to demand some respect from your teammates and respect to your team. And I just hope Al's able to step up and give that kind of guidance to some of the younger players on this team.
The Celtics announced as part of their 75th anniversary season here in the NBA's 75th anniversary season, that they plan to announce at some point in time here this year their top 15 players in franchise history. I'm sure you saw that. So I'm wondering if you have started thinking about, I could ask you to do it on the fly, but that might be unfair to you. But I'm wondering if you've started thinking about who you think belongs in the Celtics top 15 ever in the 75 years of this team. Because I know Evan has put together his list and a lot of people out there have started doing the same.
Well, I hadn't even thought about it, but just on the fly, I think what you're going to start with is just going to start with those numbers up there that are retired. That's how you're going to start. And you could go down and essentially you can look at Cousy, you can say Russell, there's Sam Jones, Havlicek, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen. I mean, and I know some Tommy Heinsohn.
I don't think Ray Allen's going to make that cut.
Yeah, I think Ray's going to make the cut.
Here's the thing about it. Ray Allen should make that cut, but probably won't. But I started thinking that.
Remember,
way.
I have to believe it's top 15, like what they accomplished in a Celtics uniform. You know,
Right.
so
Well, no, I
Ray Allen was a top 15.
Okay, well, how about this?
Play
So
for
you
the
say,
Celtics.
well,
That's
he
enough
won
to
a
say.
champ. Well, would you say Kevin Garnett's going to be on that list?
I don't think it's automatic. I think
He
I think he's
made
a,
mine.
No,
I think he's a fringe guy. I think he's a fringe
made
guy on
mine.
that list.
He's a fringe guy.
He's a fringe guy on that list. I do.
I got him higher than that, Max. I got him higher than that. He was
What's
not a fringe guy
what's
for me.
your top 15? Let's see if Max.
Well,
hears
no,
anyone that
I had
doesn't
Garnett hovering around like 10. And
Okay.
It's hard at that point. You really got to split hairs here. I mean, there's the obvious like hierarchy. Russell, Bird, Havlicek. I put Pierce in there. McHale, Sam Jones, Dave Cowens, Robert Parrish, Cousy, JoJo White, Tommy Heinsohn, KG, DJ, and then I threw Max and Rondo in there at the end.
I can think of some better players than those last two that you think
Come
about.
on, Max. Yeah, I can't come on a show with you and not put you in there.
No,
Come on, brother.
Here's the best thing about it. I can kick at myself.
Yeah, you
and
can.
say that. I was really good. I mean, you don't retire somebody's jersey for nothing. But I just think about those guys who were there. Those names I named before. When you have, was Havlicek was there and Cowens and JoJo White during that era that they won championships. How many guys are you gonna have from the Russell era? Are you gonna put Sat Sanders in there, who has 8 rings?
Right.
Did you say Sam Jones?
Yeah.
Sam.
Well, so let me read this to you. I put out on Twitter. This was, I don't know, almost a week. Actually, it's just a few days ago. Feels like an eternity ago. I said, Celtics plan to unveil their top 15. Which 15 make your list? And I got hundreds of replies. And one that jumped out on me because there was a whole lot of back and forth and engagement, obviously, between people that were submitting their lists. I'm sure or have interacted at some point in time with Casey Jones' daughter, Bryna. She's heavy. I don't know if she's heavy into social media or not, but at least she really jumped on this tweet, and so she sent her list, and she said, granted, I'm biased, but here's her list.
Okay.
Russell, Cousy, both the Jones, Sam and Casey, Satch, Tommy, Hondo, JoJo, Bird, McHale, Parrish, Cowens, Pierce and Garnett, Lewis, and Tatum. That's her group of 15.
How about there's a guy named Dennis Johnson that played for a while.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
A
lot of people who submitted their list. DJ
that won multiple championships that you think about how he was here. I don't know Reggie Lewis. I think that, and I love Reggie as a player.
Maybe it's kind of what could have been.
Yeah, I think you start looking at it from that standpoint with Reggie. Yeah, I mean your list is pretty good, but you can't leave Dennis Johnson off that list. I mean that's just. And then if you're gonna say you're not going there, you're saying was Nate Archibald that good when he was during the time he was here. I mean there are Hall of Famers that you look at that you go down at to see. I remember when I got my jersey retired by the Celtics, I said no offense at all to the good people in Springfield with the Hall of Fame, but the Hall of Fame basketball wise was right over my head because those dudes, how many championships were they involved in? I mean, you just look at that team and go, "Oh my God, this guy." I mean, there are names that you said the Jones boys, Sat Sanders. As you said, you looked at it. So their name Hondo, who I played with. So there was a big 3 right there with JoJo White, Hondo, and Dave Cowens. That was a fundamental big 3 that you start with. Then you're gonna say the big 3, the next big 3. and then you're gonna have Pierce, Garnett, but you're not gonna have Ray Allen in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right.
I'll give you another. Brad Feldman, who of course we all know, he is the longtime voice of the New England Revolution. Pretty good football team, soccer team in town. He submitted his list, pretty similar to what we just heard from Brian. I think there are two differences. He has Russell, Bird, Havlicek, Kuzi, Heinsohn, Sam Jones, KC, Cowens, Pierce, Garnett, McHale, Chief, DJ, JoJo, Tatum. So that list does not have Reggie, doesn't
Tatum's
have.
Got to be a projection pick. I mean,
kind of like, when we had Washburn on the show, it's like how, when the NBA released the NBA at 50 list, Shaq was the projection pick, and it worked. Obviously, it was right at the time. He hadn't accomplished anything, but sure enough, like he went on. It's true. So that's why people are debating right now, like who. And we had this whole conversation with Gary when he was on the show a few shows back, Max, of when the NBA releases its 75 list this year. Who's the projection pick going to be? Is it Luka? Is it there are a few different guys, obviously, you could include.
Yeah, I mean, that topic to me is one that really goes well. The Rondo pick, I think, would be. I'm not sure how and I love Rondo. Rondo's my guy. I love him, but I wouldn't put Rondo as a top 15. No. Not when I start thinking about in Celtic hierarchy or what they've done. No, he wouldn't even be close in that range.
I know we sprung it upon you, so I don't expect you to do it live on the show, but I would love for you to do your list at some point, because I'd love to hear it.
I mean, that's fair. That is really fair. But like I said, I can just think of the ones that I'm gonna give you my numbers and you tell me where I'm at. Okay.
Yeah.
Uzi, Russell, Sat Sanders, KC Jones, Sam Jones.
Yeah, that's five.
That's five. I'm gonna go with Havlicek, Cowan. No, Havlicek, Cowan, and JoJo White.
Yeah.
So that's 8 right there.
Yeah.
That's 8. Then I'm gonna go with Dennis Johnson, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish. Where am I at?
12. You have 3 left. You haven't said Pierce, right?
And then no, I hadn't said that. So I'm just coming to this year.
Yeah.
Pierce and Garnett.
Yeah.
13, 14. Now that last one, that's going to be an interest, because I would say a projection would be Tatum. A projection would be Tatum, but that's going to be the hard one right there.
But you see, it's not too tough to make that list and not include Ray Allen.
I don't think you put Dennis. Did you say DJ?
But I look at Ray, to me, and I happen to be huge fan. Ray would be that 15th pick. Ray would be that last pick for me.
I wasn't writing them down. Did you say DJ?
I don't think.
Yeah, I said DJ. I went with my era, and I said Parrish, McHale, Bird, and Dennis Johnson. That was 4 right there.
Okay.
Those 4.
I was just thinking.
Yeah, and then I said that the Paul Pierce era is Garnett, Pierce, and Allen. So those names alone, I think I've gotten my 15, and that's what. And you're leaving me out, leaving the other guys out who are Hall of Famers. You can look at that list of some of the people who else played with the Celtics during that time. Don Nelson. You can look at some of the other people. Easy Ed McCauley. There's some names up there that you just have to go. So that's going to be I like the list. I like the thought of it. To me, I'm honored in the fact that I could be an honorable mention. That to me is that's like the coolest thing in the world, to be an honorable mention to something like that. You understand, you have to make it, be one of the top. But I know that if my kids or my kids in the future, whoever it is, go to the Boston Garden, that they can look up there and they say, hey, 31, that was my dad right there. That was my dad who played here. That's how damn it, how good he was. That he made that list. And I know some people say, I was talking to a couple of people, Steve Buckley one time, he said, well, frankly, Max, I don't think that you should have had your jersey retired. I said, well, let me just throw my stats at you. First forward to lead the league in field goal percentage twice, MVP in the finals, 2 championships, and a couple climb on my damn backboards for Game 7 versus the Los Angeles Lakers. So I think that, you know, I'm in stone right now with this organization, and the fact that I've been around broadcasting for 26 years, but that's a whole nother story. But just my basketball accolades alone would lead me to be in that range.
Do you ever think about, before we let you go, obviously, you know, one of your colleagues, I'm sure a friend, Mike Gorman, you know, recently I don't know what the official distinction is, but the Kurt Gowdy Award. I was going to say, you know, some guys get like, don't call me a Hall of Famer because I received the Hall of Fame award, but I'm not in the Hall of Fame, you know, so I don't know how Mike feels about it. We haven't talked to him about it on the show yet, maybe next week or something. But, you know, do you ever think about, you know, I know like we've had the conversation about as a player and all that, but do you ever think about going into the Hall of Fame, you know, in the broadcasting wing down the line, given obviously how long you've been doing this?
No, I really don't. I mean, to me, the Hall of Fame is a special place for special people. My broadcasting career has been great, but I didn't change. I've not changed the way the basketball is listened to or seen in that way, or have a catchphrase, or, you know, so no. Basketball wise, as a player, again, there were so many great players who are Hall of Famers. Now, I was a little surprised when Dino Roger, you know, went to the Hall of Fame. I love Dino Roger, his accomplishments, what he did in Europe. And I said, well, damn, maybe I should just change and say I'm from France or something. And then I could go right to the Hall of Fame. But that to me is not and I've had players come up to me and said, what finals MVP is not in the Hall of Fame?
Right.
Or they might, but now tell them, and then I come back and said, a finals MVP that wasn't in the Hall of Fame. How about a finals MVP that never made the All-Star team? I said, so, you know, I've always been as good as I needed to be. And I think that's the problem when you play with great players like Larry Bird. Larry Bird did not care who he was playing against. Mm-hmm. It was Sisters of the Blind. He did not care. Me, there was another way. I had another gear of getting up for teams that separated me from my teammates. You know, I'm Game 7 against the Lakers. I'm playing with 4 Hall of Famers, and those 4 Hall of Famers saying, dude, we're going to give you the ball. You carry us on there for this game. So that's how they felt about me. And that's what's special, you know, when I think about those guys I played with.
This man played in the NBA. He was a finals MVP. He's been broadcasting for decades. And as I mentioned, he is an author now. Make sure you check out his book, Amazon, wherever you find your favorite books. If These Walls Could Talk, Boston Celtics, stories from the Boston Celtics sideline, locker room, and press box. Max, we love it when you come on, man. Come on anytime with us.
Look, on the back of this book is the 3 guys I talked about before. Who are these 3 guys? Kevin Garnett. Oh, yeah.
That's a pretty good era.
Paul Pierce. And there's Ray Allen. so I guess I must be the biggest Ray Allen.
You are.
But you know, I just know what he meant to this team, and I know how it is to be somehow maybe just looked over. You know, and it's real funny. I playing with the Celtics and playing with Bird and playing with McHale and playing with Parrish. You know, it was told the big 3. Well, I feel always like I'm like Ringo, like, you know, like that 4th Beatle. Like, who was that other Beatle guy that was in there? He was pretty damn good, but you know. And so that's how I've always felt, but no animosity.
Yeah.
But, you know, what they did, what those 3 did they were unbelievable. But I know I had a huge piece in who they were as guys, as teams, and what they've done as players.
Hey, if the Beatles didn't have Ringo, there'd be no rhythm. So there you go.
You see?
Yeah, that's it.
Next time we talk Celtics schedule and the Celtics season, it'll all be underway, the regular season when the games matter. Let's see if they can open up with a win against, you guessed it, Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier, and the New York Knicks come Wednesday in New York, Madison Square Garden, where Max and Grandy will be with you on the road, tune in, listen to them on the radio, and come back and get all our analysis here on CLNS after the fact. Evan, of course, will be back with me next week. Max, great pleasure, my man. We'll do it again.
Peace out, my brothers.
We'll see you guys next time.